Hey guys, Chelsea here. Now in this video I'm going to be looking at every campaign and basically looking at the playstyles with each campaign. Now I'll be going into each of these campaigns, so I'll be starting with Moscow first, so I'll switch over to Moscow. And first off I'll say what the overall campaign's strength is over the other campaigns, and then I'll be looking at the individual factions and basically where each faction dominates, where they dominate in the tech tree, where the other faction dominates in the tech tree, etc. Now, for a start, this isn't going to be like a certified, this faction is the best, this faction is the worst, because, let's face it, that's impossible to do. Rather, it's going to be, this faction has XYZ at certain points, this faction has XYZ at other points, and just that in general. Anyways, let's just begin with, I'm going to start with Moscow, as you can see. And yeah, let's begin. So starting off, we all begin with Moscow. Now, Moscow, as everyone knows, relies on long range. In fact, if you look at all of the weapons in Moscow, you can see how much it specifies with long range. Look at this, you've got, loads of bolt actions. And the semi-autos aren't really gained until, you can see here, 21, I believe, is for the Axis. It's 21, but for the Allies, I believe it's a little bit earlier. I think they get the sniper SVT a tad bit earlier, kind of like the Axis in Normandy actually. But you can see that there's a lot of bolt actions. There's very few semi-autos, and the semi-autos are all the way at the very end. And so where is the... So basically, I'm just going to say which side has the advantage. Well, really, they both have an advantage in different areas. The Allies have the immediate advantage of close range. They have the PPD 30, they got the PPD 34, 38, along with the PPD 40, and of course, the PPSH, which are, again, three incredibly good close-range SMGs. You can see here, 73 round, the 71 round drums for these three are just dirty powerful. The PPSH, obviously, is probably one of the most powerful weapons of all time, really. This was one of the most powerful things, and the Russians basically just sent these basically everywhere. So the Soviets have the close-range advantage. They also have the mortar advantage, and I believe they also might have the anti-tank advantage, because let's face it, these anti-tank weapons are pretty strong. And yeah, does the Germans actually have maybe the Panzerbushel here? But if I remember correctly, you have to manually reload with these Panzerbushels. You have to manually reload after every one, whereas the Soviets PTRS 41, obviously the PTRS has a magazine, so you can use this as a semi-auto. Now, with the Axis, where do they benefit? Well, the first thing, they get one of the best snipers in the game, the MKB 42, which is essentially, well, it's a carbine, or its classification is a carbine. But really, it's an assault rifle. So they get the assault rifle. It's classed as a semi-automatic. But yeah, sniper rifle, assault rifle, basically. And you can see, yeah, they have to wait a long time because they get the Gavir 98, the pre-war car 98K, whereas the Allies, of course, get the scoped SVT, both two scoped SVTs, and the scoped AVS by the time they get the MKB. Sorry, I just had to think of the designation. But the Axis definitely excel in machine guns. They get the MG13 and the ZB, which are pretty good. And you also get the MG34, which is one of the best LMGs in the game. Whereas the Soviets only get two. They get the Madden and they get the DP27. The DP27 is okay, but I think, in my opinion, the MG34 is much better. And the Madden, I've heard bad stories about that thing, that it's not that good. And yeah, that's the thing with close range as well. Look, even these close range options, the allies are much better. And these, like the MP34, MP40, MP35, and the Beretta, I'd argue are better at mid range, where these are basically just you walk into a room and you just spray and pray and everything dies. So yeah, that's no, well, that's Berlin, not Berlin. That's Moscow for you. The obviously, of course, they get some. The tanks are kind of similar. I don't know. I think the BT7's really good. T28 is really good for the meme. T50 apparently is one of the best tanks for Moscow. So is the Panzer 4E, I believe it is. The 4E is really good apparently, and the F1's really good. Panzer 3J I don't know much about. Same with the Panzer 3B and E. Yeah, I don't really know much about Moscow, so I'm going in blind most of the time, but which is different for every other campaign because I know quite a bit about the other campaigns. So yeah, that's going to be Moscow. Great long ranged. Allies are better in closer range, but the Axis dominate longer ranges and probably dominate tanks as well. Anyways, let's move on to everyone's favourite campaign, Normandy. For Normandy, it's actually really different because Normandy is all about flip-flopping, in my opinion. You'll see this with the campaign tech tree a lot, but Normandy just flip-flops around over which side's dominant and where they are dominant. So we'll start with the overall premise. Normandy is kind of a mixture of very close-range situations and long-range engagements. Maps like St. Lo and maps like St. Lo and Omir are really good for close range. Parts of the Brie are really good for close ranges. Ruins of Valks are, they're urban environments. But then you have maps like Swamps and Chateau and Versailles, where if the action shifts from not being, more being like Moscow in a way, with longer ranges and, more accuracy rather than spraying and praying. So where did everyone fall in the line? Well, ironically, I think I was saying, but it really depends on like what level you are, and I'm going to explain that now because basically the Allies have really good longer range options in the early game. They probably thrive. You've got the Lee Enfield number 4. You've got the M1 carbine and the Garand. The carbine's not that good, but the Garand is really good. You've got the A1, which is a decent sniper rifle. And both the grease guns are better at mid-range than they are as close-range weapons. Well, let's face it, everything's better at close range than the grease guns because the grease guns are awful. And you can really see that the Piat as well and the bazooka, even later with the bazooka, are more designed for longer ranges than the Axis counterparts. However, for the Axis, I'll continue with my point. When it gets around the mid game as well, the mid campaign, you get stuff like the A4, the grenade launcher, and you get stuff like the Winchester, which is god awful. But you also get stuff like the Bren and the BAR, the first BAR, which they're okay at mid range, but they're really good at close range as well, especially the BAR. The BAR A1 is a brilliant close range weapon, and in my opinion, is one of the few dominant close-range LMGs. And then when you get to the late stage of the tech tree, you get the M2 Flamethrower, you get the BAR-2, which is probably the best close-range LMG in the game. You get the Sten, the Lancaster, the Thompsons, and the M2 Carbine, the Sniper Garand, the Garand with the rocket launcher, or the grenade launcher. And the play completely shifts from being close range precision with the Ross rifles, the Enfield, which is pretty much until level 18. You're using more precision weaponry instead of screaming around a corner, reeing with with the M2 carbine, as you get when you get to level 23, I believe it is. And of course you get the Thompsons and the... Oh, I'm on the wrong page. You get the Thompsons, the Sten is really good at close range, the Lancaster is really good at close range. The BARs obviously are brilliant at close range, especially the A2. And yeah, as well as that, the tanks as well. The Stuart and the Scott usually play second fiddle to the Puma and the Panzer III, but the Sherman is a perfect matchup for the Panzer III and the Panzer IV. Jumbo beats pretty much everything other than the Panther, and the M10. Again, this is where the shift changes. As the M10, when you get to the M10, you're starting to use the M10's more focused around long range, whereas say the the Jumbo and everything else is more mid range other than the Scott, which is again closer, longer range. The Axis is actually it's the inverse. They got really bad long range options really early on. The Mannlicher is not that good. And the Breda is an early game LMG, which is awful. And their SMGs, you got the FNAB, but you also have the MP34, the MP40, the Beretta, which are really good at close range. Now, the MP40, kind of like an in-between. But then you get to the later stages of the tech tree, and you get the FG42s, the Sniper Gavir, MG34 and 42s, and MP43s, Beretta M38, the MP35, which are all more mid to late to long range weapons. And that's the thing as well, the tanks. They start out very dominant with the Axis. The Axis tanks are very dominant, the Puma and the Panzer IIIN. They then get shakier with the Panzer IV-J. The J is still a decent tank, really good tank. And the H is still a really good tank. I think I put the H as better than the Panzer, like the third best tank in Normandy. But they're outclassed by the Jumbo, and then you get the Panther, obviously, which outclasses everything. And really has no equal. And that's the thing as well, the Germans get so... It's weird, the Germans, and with Normandy, because it all flip-flops everywhere. The Allies, they start off, being more long range, and they get to just close range, hectic firefights. The Axis start out very good with very good close range and pretty poor long range. In fact, to show this, the Maz is probably one of the better bolt-action rifles for close-range engagements in the game, and it has a bayonet implemented onto it. Obviously, I know you can put bayonets on the Garand, and you can put bayonets on the Kar 98Ks as well. But, it's just you look at, the Allies, where they can put bayonets on basically everything. And you also get stuff like the M2 carbine, which is just dirty powerful at close range. I don't think there's a single better close range rifle than the M2 carbine. Whereas with, the Axis, their counterpart is the FG42, which is really good at long range. And I would argue the FG42 isn't even that... It's okay at close range, but it's not as good at close range as something like the M2. I would say, if you have an FG42 user and an M2 user in close range, the M2 user would probably win the fight. Obviously, excluding, of course, which other side gets a jump. So, really flip-floppy with Normandy, going from, where, starting out, you get, for the Allies, they get, really crap close range, but then they just destroy everything at close range. Whereas the Axis, they kind of, they don't do well at longer ranges in the early game, and they're much better at close range engagements. But then they get much better at close range engagements. In fact, at longer ranges, as the game goes on. I mean, the the MP43-1 is a really good mid-range, is just the antithesis of a mid-ranged rifle. Like, this thing, you can see here, that's, 2-shot kills at most ranges at max level. And I think, even at mid-level, it's still a 2-shot kill at most ranges. A really good weapon, though. I really love this weapon. Anyways, that's going to be Normandy. Sorry I hyped on a little bit, but yeah, let's go on to Berlin. Well, Berlin doesn't really have much. Like, it's all close range with Berlin. I don't have to argue anything more. All of the maps are close range. The only exception is CeeLo. Like, I'm just going to have to say that, like, and all of the campaigns really revolve around close range. You can see it, especially with the assault weapon, and the machine guns, they're all really focused around close range, But, and you get, like, really powerful stuff. But, much like with Moscow, it's basically the exact same. The Soviets dominate close range, and the Axis dominate long range. Now, with the Soviets, it's really easy to see why. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are 5 of the most powerful SMGs in the game. You cannot go wrong with a Soviet SMG in Berlin. The PPS-42, the PPS-43, both the PPSHs and the PPD are disgustingly powerful at basically every range. Compare this to the Axis. The MP3308 is shit. It's shit. The MP40, it's the MP40. It's fine. MP35 is really good. I mean, it's the MP35. You can't go wrong with it. It's a fantastic SMG. The Volkssturmgewehr, it's okay. Like, it has it's decent, as a mid-ranged option. And of course you've got the Beretta, which is just the Beretta. But the Allies, the Axis, I mean, they really excel at longer ranges in Berlin. The VG2 is a perfect example of this, having a lot of ammo. Obviously, of course, the FG42s and the MG34s and 42s and the whatever this is, I can't pronounce it. And whereas the Soviets, their close range options are they have the Mosin carbine, which has the bayonet, which I like it. It's a really, I really do like these Mosins though. And again, the SVT is really good. The AVS and the AVT are really good as well, and are pretty good for close range engagements. But I would say again, to show this, the Soviets really excel at close range with their weapons, especially stuff like their SMGs. And I would say even these, these are probably better at close to mid range, whereas something like the MG34 is probably much better at, longer ranges for holding lines. For tanks, it's basically Soviet domination for the most part. T-34 85s are really, really fucking good. The Su-85 is a really good fixed gun tank, and the IS-1 is pretty strong. The only exception, and I would say, Panzer IV-J shouldn't be here. It should be the H. Panther G, really strong tank, but the 85s beat it. The Panzer IV, not that good. The Yag's much better. And then you get, of course, the Tiger, which... Okay, I'm just going to say it. This is where the Axis dominate. The Axis dominate with the Tiger, but... Yeah. The only real, the Axis, again, long range... they dominate long range, which I'm starting to see a pattern here. I wonder if the next campaign will break it. Whereas the Allies, again, seeing a pattern, are very dominant in close range, especially in the late game. Anyways, let's move on to the fourth, final, and probably most rejected campaign. Like, seriously, who actually plays Tunisia at this point? Tunisia. Let's just go on to Tunisia. Tunisia's main strength is having a lot of recycled weaponry. Anyways, that'll be. I'm joking. I'm just gonna have to elaborate a little more. Yeah, Tunisia. It's weird. It's literally just Normandy light. I think I made a video on this. Everyone's made a video on this, but it's just I don't even know really. Like, I can't actually trace what, with Tunisia, which side gets the advantage. Well, actually, I can trace it. The Allies get the advantage. Just to show you off, right? What's it? Oh, crap. No, I didn't want me to do that. Whatever this is. I would say this is worse than what's unlocked here, which is... I would say it's worse than the number 4, actually. And obviously the Grand is much better than the Gavir 41. Like, the Gavir 41's a fine rifle, but, stripper clips versus an M-block. And also the Grand is just great. In terms of range, the Carcanos are fine, but you cannot beat the Lee Enfield number 4. You cannot beat the number 4 rifle with the scope. And that's the thing. The Axis actually do not have, in my opinion, in Tunisia, do not have an option. They can't beat the Allies in any feasible capability. In close range, the Allies beat them. Like, MP28 is bad. M1's good, actually. MP40. The OVP is a very situational weapon. And, of course, it's another Model 38. Compare this to the Allies, which get the STEM, which is a good SMG, the Lancaster, which is a very good SMG, and 1, 2, 3 versions of arguably the best, if not the best SMG in the game. Like, by the time you're using the Allies, the Axis using the MP40, the Allies have the Thompson. You cannot compete with that. So, the Axis must compete in, the other weapons departments, with the longer ranges. They don't even do that. Like, the Bren and the Vickers are much better, and of course the BAR, I would argue, are much better than these 3. The Breda, of course, is awful. We all know how much I love that weapon. The ZB, it's a ZB. I mean, yeah, this is kind of comparable to a Bren, but the Bren's got more ammo. And the MG34 is the MG34. Nothing wrong with the MG34, so, hey, points for that. But it's up against the BAR-A2, which is probably more powerful. And I haven't really been taught about anti-tank rifle capabilities. Well, I brushed on it briefly in Moscow, but even in anti-tank rifle capabilities, the British have it covered. Like, the boys and the Piat are superior. Superior British technology. And then we get to just tanks. Like, all of these, I'd say, pale in comparison. There's a reason why the Grant is so hated. There's a reason for that. The A13 is is much better than the whatever this is. The A14 is probably more of a comparison, but you also get the Daimyo, which is more like this. This is more situational, and whereas the Grant is more like, it's kind of like the Panzer III versus the actually no, it's more like the Panther versus the M10. Now I think of it, situation. One's really good for all situations. One's only you use it when you have to. And the Panzer IIIJ and the Crusader are also pretty good. And I haven't been covering this yet, but here's another reason why Tunisia Axis really suffer. Like, this isn't even, like, the event vehicles are really prominent for the Allies. Like, I'm pretty sure I mean, look at this. You get the Grant. I mean, that wasn't an event vehicle. The Crusader as well. Like, obviously, you can't use it. And you also get the Daimler. You can get the Grant here. Whereas this, yeah, you can get the Panzer III and the M13, but really, does it matter? I don't even think this was even fair for the Italians. It's literally just me shit talking the Italian weapons for like 10 minutes. It's literally just been me shit talking the Italian weapons because really the Allies are just so much better in terms of everything. So that's gonna be my review on Tunisia. It's literally the Allies are superior in every way. They get much better event rewards. They get much better in everything, and the Axis gets no real domination in Tunisia. Like and even in the areas where you think they're good here, the Allies have counters to it, and yeah, it's just so basically Tunisia Allies dominate everywhere. Axis actually suffer for once. Anyways, that's going to be the end of this video. Leave some thoughts in the comments about, what you think about each campaign. This has just been my look at, each of the campaigns, where each faction kind of excelled, and where the faction is in general. Where the campaign kind of, where it is in general, in terms of fighting. If you want a go-to rating, I would say that if you want to answer the question that because I've seen this question answered quite a bit, what campaign should I start with? Well, first, this should be a good guide for you, but just looking through this video, look at each of the factions. Which faction do you like the most, and which playstyle do you like the most? If you like really close range situations, Berlin. But say you like long range engagements, but you like it in cities, Axis Berlin will probably have you covered best. Let's say you like close range situations, but maybe in an open field. Well, Normandy, both sides, probably has you covered there. Let's say you like longer range engagements. Well, Axis Moscow. Let's say you hate yourself. Axis Berlin. No, not Berlin. Axis Tunisia. Oh my god. Anyways, leave your thoughts in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next video.